Welcome to season 3 of the Divorced Christian Woman podcast, which is all about money and finances. And this is episode 2, where we're going to be talking about investing. So today I have with me my friend and fellow coach, Diana Swillinger, and we're going to be visiting with Samantha Compton. She is the president and senior financial advisor at Insight Wealth. So, first of all, welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
Good morning or good afternoon or whenever you're listening.
Samantha, Diana tells me that you especially enjoy working with women who are facing or have gone through a divorce. So maybe the two of you can talk about how I know you two are both friends. I'm meeting Samantha for the first time today, but maybe you guys can talk together about why you enjoy working with divorced women in particular and how you both met.
Well, I'm going to jump in, Samantha, and then I'll let you kind of take that over because I'll just say this shortly. But I've done a lot of work as a speaking coach, which has been so fun. I help entrepreneurs who want to grow their business learn how to speak from a stage so they can get more clients. And that's where I met Samantha. She was at this workshop that I was coaching at, and she and I both knew we were going to be friends, I think, kind of unspoken, and we weren't sure how that was going to happen. But when she talked about, so I helped her write a talk to speak in front of women so that they could feel empowered to lead their finances for the future that they wanted. So it shouldn't, even if you're married, and especially if you're not married, women need to understand all the things about investments and how to make their money work for them and how are they going to pay the bills when they stop working and all of that. And it was all about empowering women. So that was one of the main things that really drew me to Samantha. And then we ended up connecting later after the event. But I'll turn it over to you, Samantha.
Well, I'm
Okay.
just, before you talk though, I just want to say, I wish we could hear the speech.
Oh, right. It's
Maybe
good.
sometime.
Maybe sometime we can do that. Well, it was so fun working with Diana because I had all of this story inside of me and I wanted to learn how to share it. And I'm still working on that, by the way. But I would say that at the time that I really started to become passionate about sharing this story, I had been a financial advisor for about 3 years. And I myself had been a single mom, had gone through a divorce at 38, didn't have any retirement savings, didn't even know what a mutual fund was at the time. So I felt very overwhelmed with my own lack of knowledge and my own lack of saving. And I was very concerned about my future. And I didn't even know where to start with any of it. And one of the memories that came back to me as I was sitting with a lot of these women and trying to relate again, go back to that feeling that they would have when women would come and sit in front of me in my office now in this new phase of life as a financial advisor. Big gap there that I'll fill a little bit as we go. But I just remember and kind of correlate it to being a single mom needing a vehicle to be able to go wherever I needed to go, drop my kids, go to work to earn money, and then having something happen to where it wasn't working. And I knew the noise it was making. And I remember sitting on my couch one day. I had already dropped my car off that morning. I was sitting waiting for that dreaded phone call about how much it was going to cost to fix it. And when the phone rang and the man on the other end told me how much it was going to be, I had this horrible feeling in my gut, and it was so unsettling because when I had gone in there, I had said, it's making this noise and it comes from over here, and I'm not really sure. And I knew that at that moment, I had this huge bullseye on my forehead. That's what it felt like. And so when he called and told me how much it was going to be, my stomach just was sick because I had no way of knowing. Is this man taking advantage of me? Is he telling me something that's not true? How can I double check? How can I be smart? I really want to be smart, and I don't know how to be smart. I don't know how to be wise in this situation. But there were so many things riding on this decision. I had to make an instantaneous decision about whether I was going to spend this money or not. And I just remember thinking in that moment, how lonely it was to have to make those huge financial decisions by myself with nobody to talk to about it. And that feeling of loneliness and concern and vulnerability, which is not a fun word, and I don't like that feeling. And I think a lot of women, when they come into a financial situation where they're meeting with somebody about their finances, I think that's a really common feeling. They feel vulnerable. They don't know how to double check if someone's telling them what's true or not true, and they don't know how to get the knowledge or the understanding that they really need quickly enough to help their situation. So it's kind of what got me started and what got me passionate about this. And learning to use a language. And what I wanted to do was never learn so much that I forgot the simple language that we can
Mm,
talk about money in. Because once we start using the terms and the terminology and all the things that people in my industry, after being in the industry for a long time, start doing, we lose our audience. And
yes.
if we're not there to really empower and equip our audience, what are we doing? I mean,
Yeah.
we're just trying to prove ourselves by the language that we're using, and there's no value to the client in that.
Yeah. And there it is like a brand new language that you have to learn. You don't
Yeah.
know. I remember when I first, well, I hired a financial planner and I didn't even know if I was doing the right thing or not. I thought maybe they're like you, I thought maybe they're trying to just gouge me for my money.
Right.
And is this going to be worth it in the long run?
Yeah.
It has been definitely worth it in the long run, but at the time I was really scared. And yeah, all of the things that they were throwing at me, all of the words, my brain could not catch much of them. Is there a way that walk a brand new client through to try to explain things? Like sometimes I'll say to people, could you explain it to me like I'm in kindergarten? Because I don't, when it comes to this, I am in kindergarten.
Absolutely. So one of the first things I do is break someone's finances into three categories. And I have a visual. There's three buckets on a page. And no matter what financial thing we're talking about, each of them is going to fit in one of three buckets. It's either going to be short-term money, liquid savings, or it's going to be related to our income, or it's for the future 5 years plus. It's all related to one of those three. So one of the first exercises we do is just let's identify each of the things that you have, products or accounts or whatever it is, and let's see how they're titled, and then let's just see where do they fit in each of these three. And so many times, just even that exercise of women seeing, okay, this is my short term, this is what I have for income, and this is my long term. That alone can bring so much order. I think I'm a visual person, and I find a lot of other people are too. And a lot of times we have the swirl happening. And so we've got all of these accounts and pieces and names of things, IRA, non-IRA, qualified, non-qualified, 401k, insurance. We've just got all these things. And they're not landing anywhere in our brain.
Yeah.
They're just
Yeah.
floating around, and we're hoping that we're not losing track of something. And so just the exercise of putting them in order and having a visual outline of things is so comforting. I mean, it just kind of, whoo, I just see women most of the time just kind of, okay, so that's where everything is. All right. Then we can focus then on, is there a different order they could be in? Is there, of these only three places, are any of them lacking? And then which one should we address first? One of the other things I find what's happening is when the swirl is happening, women are trying to attack or solve for all of the things all at once. And because they're feeling panicked and they're feeling afraid and they don't know where to start, so they're trying to run at everything, which we know that isn't possible to run at everything. And so then they give up really fast or they just feel overwhelmed. I think that just the divorce process in and of itself can be so overwhelming. And we've got trauma and we've got mourning and we've got all the new things that we have to learn. And we're expecting our brain to be able to handle all of that. Or inside, we have this voice saying, you're stupid and you can't learn this and you're not going to be okay. And all those other internal dialogue that are happening at that time. And so first of all, just you can't know all the things right away. And you can still be okay. You can still come up with a really simple, straightforward way of approaching each thing one at a time and develop a strategy over time.
So when people are coming out of divorce, their their money, where it's going to be in these three buckets, I wrote down short-term cash, just like I have a savings account,
Yeah.
income, I'm getting a paycheck, future, what am I going to do when I retire? That's how I even took it into more simple language for
Yeah.
me. And when women are coming out of divorce, yes, some of them do have that some future money, or they've
Yeah.
gotten what we've learned is like the, oh, money that goes through Quadro,
That's
which is
right.
just when retirement accounts are being split and they have to follow a legal process and you learn all that stuff. Okay, so some women do have that stuff in retirement, but I've coached many, and Natalie too, we've coached many women who come through the divorce and they've got some cash and now they're working again or they're receiving spousal support and so that's their income.
Mhm.
And the future thing is so scary. They either don't have anything there or they're afraid to look at it or like they just want to stick their head in the sand and worry about today. Can you help? How would you talk to them to kind of maybe demystify that and take some of the fear out of being willing to look at that future bucket?
That can be a challenge to understand and know that there will be a need there, and yet there isn't anything there yet. So I'm going to share a little of my story because I think it's somewhat hopeful. So I didn't start saving for retirement until about 42. I'm now 56. It was the beginning of my professional journey. And what I did was I had to face the reality, but I knew I had to take baby steps. There's no other way to do it. And so looking back, I realized I approached the buckets like I do today, but I didn't even know that's what I was supposed to do. So the absolute first thing is to make sure that your savings is adequate if you can, just do as much as you can to get your short-term savings account, emergency funds in order, and make sure that you're going to have adequate income, whatever you need to do that. And if those things are falling short, that has to be addressed in the sooner. I think sometimes as women, when we're overwhelmed, like you said, we want to put off things or we want to kind of delay addressing them. But the reality is it's not going to get better. I mean, just like you had to face a reality, I had to face a reality in my own marriage. It wasn't getting better. It wasn't going to get better by me pretending that things were okay when they weren't okay. And it's the same here. But you have to start somewhere. So don't look behind you. Focus on what's in front of you. That's the first thing to do because we can tell ourselves, I wish I had done this and I regret I did this. And that energy is completely wasted because you cannot change what the past was, but you can change. And the sooner you can let go of that negative looking back thing, you can begin to focus your energy on what is ahead. And what I did was I just started saving a little. I had so much more expense than I did income in the very beginning, and I couldn't save for my long term. I had to focus really on paying my bills, number one. Number two, then when I started making a little bit more, then I built up my savings account. And then when I was ready, I was able to start saving to my 401k, and I would just say, "Hey, I'm gonna save 1%." I couldn't even save to get the whole match at the time, 1%. And I put it on my calendar that every 6 months I was going to increase that by 1%. So every 6 months, I just got into my online and upped it by a percent, upped it by a percent, put it on my calendar, did it. I didn't start adding it up going, oh, is it going to be enough? Is it going to be? No, because it was all I could do. So just do what you can do. Let the outcome come when it comes. If you're doing all you can, that's all you can do. Sometimes just feeling like it's not perfect, like, well, then I can't do anything. And that's also a common thought that, well, when I can save X amount of dollars, I'm going to start. No, you can start with $20 a month, or you can start with whatever you can start with. you can start with. So you just have to start. Starting imperfectly is better than not starting at all. And I don't really know if I'm answering exactly what you were asking, but
I
there's
have
so much negative thought there that you just have to shut down and start doing what you can do.
I have a follow up to that because I think some people might, especially if we're really scared around finances, we might be like, well, I better make sure that I have enough in my savings. You use the word liquid, and I know what that
Mhm.
means, but maybe some people don't even know what that means. Like I
Yeah.
remember when I didn't know what does it mean,
Yeah.
liquid? Why are they talking about money like that? Um, it just means that you can use like you can access it easily. You can, there's no hoops to jump through. It's right there in your account. But they might feel like, oh, how do I know that I have enough in my savings that now I can actually put some in my investments? And where do you cross the line between, well, okay, I'm hoarding in my savings, but I mean this is a problem for me. But I really that money would be better put into like either a high yield savings account, where you're getting more interest than what you're getting at your local Wells Fargo, or or an investment account where it's more volatile because it's going to go up and down, but if you keep it in there for a long time it'll eventually go up. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. This is the thing. It is the thing. Some people respond to fear by holding on to money, and sometimes people respond to fear by spending money. And
Mm.
either one of those can be detrimental. And what I mean by that is, yes, if you have $100,000 in your savings, you have adequate income, you probably need to do something different with some of those funds. But really what we're talking about, as you're mentioning that, is an overall plan, a guide map that says, okay, when the first thing I'm going to do is, okay, let me back up just a little bit. Some people love Dave Ramsey, some people cannot stand Dave Ramsey. I know a lot of people on both sides of this fence, but what I will tell you is the baby steps are pretty magical. I mean, they really do work. And I really encourage women who, if they just want to know where to start and they even want to get on top of their budget and get on top of how much they're saving, you cannot go wrong by doing the baby steps,
Mm-hmm.
period. So if that's where someone is, I'm just going to say go that direction. Go through Financial Peace University or get his book or something. But those baby steps are really solid. And so the baby steps really are paying or saving $1,000 for emergencies. Next, paying off your debt. Building the third step is building up more of your emergency savings, and then you just move through the steps from there. But that is can also be a plan. So I think having a roadmap, having a first we're going to do this. When the savings gets to X amount of dollars, then I'm going to do this. When that does this, then I'm going to do this. And so it's really that step by step. So we're not guessing. We're not kind of flying by the seat of our pants. And I find that women who are holding on to a lot in a very low earning savings account, it's really just because they don't have a plan. They don't know what else to do.
Yeah.
And so the exercise of really coming up with a step-by-step plan is important. So for a woman who is really just not sure how she's going to live or survive, I mean, I think that kind of baby steps plan is a great one. If a woman is maybe they're 5 to 10 years away from their own retirement and they're also they have a quadro or they have their own savings in addition, then they might need some more detailed planning, which then a fiduciary advisor, which fiduciary just means that by law they're required to work in the client's best interest. They'll usually be fee-based. Advisors, a lot of times they'll have a minimum investment, but that's the kind of advisor who's going to help you develop more of a strategy specific to a goal that you have of retirement. Whereas maybe if somebody is much younger than that, working through those budgeting issues and making sure then that they're saving, they're prepared for the future, that kind of thing, that can be a great place to start just with the baby steps.
Yeah, I'm just going to jump in here too right now and say Diana and I are going to have an episode coming down the road here about uh not about retiring and how you don't necessarily have to retire. We're going to talk about the history of retirement and how things have changed, and that a lot of people are finding that they really don't want to stop working, and not only probably they can't stop working, but they don't even want to stop working. They want to keep working in some capacity, right? So but we're going to leave that. We won't talk about that here. We're going to talk, we'll talk more. I think we should focus more in this episode on, like, if you do want to retire or you want to be prepared for, maybe you could get sick or you could have disabilities or whatever and you wouldn't be able to work. um what what do you Okay, so what if someone comes is divorced and they actually come into quite a bit, like a pretty large settlement, but they have not typically been used to managing their money in the past? Where do you start with someone like that? The baby steps, maybe they don't have to, they can bypass those because it's not applicable to them, but what would you do with someone like that?
This is probably the part where I need to say that because I do have compliance regulations, I just want to say this is not specific advice. I don't know anybody's situation out there, so I'm not giving you specific advice, tax advice, or anything like that. I'm going to try to speak more in generalities, but for somebody like that, I think a fiduciary advisor is good. So, a fiduciary advisor is a registered investment advisor or somebody who works for a registered investment advisory firm, an RIA. So that's the term that you'll see, RIA or registered investment advisor. Um, and then I would interview a few and see who you feel is best. Do I think somebody in that situation should work with an advisor? 100%. I do. Because there are so many moving parts and pieces to consider. And if you've not done that before, then I would look for somebody who comes from an educational point of view. So, and like myself, and there's many other advisors who really love to equip through education. And so, as I'm working with those clients, just like you described, I'm helping to educate them as we go and just trying to allow them also to ask questions. Like, it doesn't matter if it sounds like a silly question or a dumb question or a question that they think they might should already know or anything like that. Like, find somebody that you feel safe to do that with, and then do go with them. Because but I would interview two or three people, maybe ask around to some other friends that maybe have had good experiences with people. But I think a fiduciary is it's good. It's at least getting the law on your side for knowing that they have a fiduciary standard that they have to meet. They have to only recommend what's in your best interest. So I think it's a
Yeah.
good place to start.
Yeah.
I want to say something about what you just said before that. And I want to say, yay, that you're doing an episode on that. Because, first of all, I am all about finding new purpose in seasons of life. And I actually don't even think that total retirement may be very fulfilling for most people. So I think what you're doing is you're strategizing for the freedom to get paid or not get paid for the next things you're doing. And so anyway, I just wanted to add that as a note because I think that it could be a very fun season to prepare for, and it could launch you into a whole new purpose in life. And so, yeah, glad you're doing
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So what kind of I know compliance wise you're not giving specific advice, but if somebody comes into, they're getting a settlement in their divorce, or some people I know they've just had the money sitting in a bank, or they've got some property that they're going to sell and they're going to get that money. Yeah, they're going to work with a financial advisor. Fiduciary is great. RIA, I heard all that. But just to help us learn a little bit, what kind of accounts do people start with? How do they start putting, I know I've heard it called a portfolio where you've got some money in a few different places. Like, how do you get started figuring that out with someone? And what are some of the beginning accounts people work
Yeah.
with?
I would say, first of all, if somebody is employed and they have an opportunity to save to the company's retirement plan, that is a fabulous place to start. Most plans will also have some sort of match, which means that if you contribute, your employer will match up to a certain percentage, and that's free money. So the first place for long-term savings is generally exploring those options. Of those options, I highly suggest Roth. And so what I mean by that is if you have a 401k and there's a traditional option and there's a Roth 401k option, the Roth 401k option is not going to give you a tax deduction today for contributing. So you'll pay taxes on your full income, but the money that goes into that 401k Roth, as long as you follow the rules of the plan, will be tax-free later on in life. So you're going to pay taxes today, but you're not going to pay taxes when you take the money out after age 59 and a half to have the freedom to do whatever you want to do. So that's a great way to do it. You could also split. You could do some traditional 401k and some Roth 401k. Those accounts are great too because there's no earned income limit that you have to stay under in order to participate with those because traditional IRAs and Roth IRAs have earned income limits. If you make over a certain amount, you can't save to certain kinds of accounts. We don't have to worry about that with 401ks, 403bs, 457 plans. Those are all employer related kinds of plans. SEP IRAs and simple IRAs can also be, if you own your own business, you can set up plans like that, or you may work for a small business that has a simple IRA. Those are all great places to start. An IRA stands for Individual Retirement Account. So I recommend going with workplace savings accounts first, long-term savings accounts. And then after you've explored that, or if it's not open to you, then you could look at traditional IRAs or traditional Roth IRAs. But those would be the order that I would go in at, but only after these two things have happened. I would have your emergency savings built up to where if you lost your job for 6 months, you have cash available to pay your bills. The second thing is I would have no consumer debt. I would not start working on your long-term money until you get your consumer debt paid off. Because what your consumer debt, your credit cards, at the very least, are costing you is way more than you're probably going to earn in any of those other accounts. And this is an example of not trying to run at all of those things at the same time, but putting some laser focus and intention in doing one at a time. If you know that you're going to invest after you've got your emergency savings and after you've got your debt paid off, now you just run at those two things as fast as you can. And then I would go to your workplace environment for the savings plans there. Does that help?
Yeah, then I guess the other layer was thinking of when women get like in a divorce settlement, they get property or they get a chunk of money, and some people are just sitting on it. Literally I've um sometimes surprised. I don't want to say it in a bad way. Like I just don't know what to do. It's like it's in a savings account. Like I got
Yeah.
50,000 sitting in the savings account and I can't put that in my employer savings, and that's too
Okay.
much maybe to put in. Well, you can't put, that's too much to put in a Roth. So
Yeah.
how now I don't fully understand all this. I'm still learning. So what do you do with that extra cash? Like Roth, the Roth limit, I don't know what it is. Let's say it's $7,000 a year, depends on your age, but around there's right? So if you have $50,000 sitting in a savings account, you could put 700 in a Roth in a single year period. What am I supposed to do with the rest of it? I'm not self-employed. I can't put it in my work plan. Where does it go?
That is such a unique question and it's so specific. I could give 10 women 10 different answers, honestly,
Okay. Well,
because
just in general, like what kind of things might we look at?
would maybe be an option. I would say, well, first of all, you have to have earned income. If you're not married, you have to have earned income to save to a traditional Roth IRA or a traditional IRA. So you have to have earned income first. You can't give more than the amount of earned income that you have. So then you could look, hey, is there a higher, at the very least, is there a higher money market that I can find? Now, a money market just means that the money is not locked up into anything. If you were in a CD, then it's locked up for a certain period of time and you'd have to pay a penalty to get out early. There's not really very great rates out there for CDs. There are some higher earning interest accounts and money market accounts. A lot of times are those. So at the very least, go see what the highest rate you can get. You can find some really good rates online, generally for some online savings accounts, and you just can connect those to your bank account, and then you can transfer money back and forth. And so that's one place to start. Your 3 to 6 months worth of savings for your emergency savings, sometimes 50,000 is not too much to have in that. Um, you might if you've got young children and you're thinking about, oh, what about college savings? You could consider some sort of 529 plan. You could open up just a regular investment account and invest in some ETFs or mutual funds. You could those are all kinds of options that are out there. But again, the answer that I would give somebody could vary vastly from one to the next, depending upon how old they are, how old their children are, what their goals are, what spending habits. And I will say that I've met with some women that come out of marriages, and if they have been used to a certain way of living, let's say that them and their husband, they had a pretty high standard of living. And then all of a sudden, they are now on their own, not used to handling their long-term finances with a lot less income. One of the first things is getting a handle on your cash flow first. Before making any decisions about what you're going to do with this money, you might take 6 months and just get a handle on your cash flow. Because until the dust settles, sometimes it's hard to say, oh, what are my bills going to be? And what is my income going to be? And until you get that clarified, a lot of times I will advise a woman to leave it in a higher interest money market until that's figured out. Sometimes women think that they need to, pay off their house right away, or they need to go buy a house or something like that. And those are all really big moves to make right out of the gate that I usually caution against until they have a good understanding what their cash flow is. If you've never had to have a budget, having one is going to be more of a challenge. And that isn't something you're going to be instantly good at. You're going to need to work at it for probably a good 4 to 6 months up to a year to where you're like, you know what? I know it. I know now what I spend. I know now what I have coming in. I'm solid. Now let's make some of those other decisions.
We do have an episode coming up in this series about budgeting too, just letting listeners know if you're wondering about that. Okay, so I just want to quick reiterate something here. So if you have a chunk of money that's around $50,000, like you said, Diana, and you're not really sure what to do with it, I think you should at least get it into a high interest savings account. And to find one, just Google it. Just Google what are the rates for different. This is what I did, and I got comparable rates with lots of different banks. I picked one, it was 4.5%. That's pretty good. And I put it in there. And every month it's making, like a few $100s because it's just sitting there rather that than sitting in, my regular bank account where it gets 2 cents every month. Right. So at least do that. And then so let's say that someone, because everyone, like you said, everyone's situation is so different. There's so many different layers of variables. When would someone, so that they're thinking in their mind, some people might be like, oh yeah, I know I need to start with the baby steps. I don't even have any savings. I need to start with $1,000 savings. I'll try that. Or I'll look at Dave Ramsey's site and see what his baby steps are. We'll put a link to that in the show notes, by the way. But let's say there's someone who's, like not there. They're like, okay, I've got some savings. I know a little bit, but I don't, I'll give you a personal example just once I did hire a financial advisor. And then after I worked with him for 2 or 3 years, I was like, I could do this on my own. I'm rocking this. I know what I'm doing. And I started getting all these books on investing and stuff, and started reading and listening to podcasts, and because I was going to do this by myself. And then I got a second divorce. And so when it came right down to it, I realized I am still like swimming in an ocean that I I don't have time for this. I don't have time to figure this out. I'm too scared. I really don't know what I'm doing. It's way too complicated. And this is after reading a lot of books. The more I read, the more I realized I don't think I want to do this on my own. And I'm so glad that I didn't, because then my advisor was able to walk me through the whole divorce thing and then the aftermath of it and get me back situated and everything figured out. And I know that I wouldn't have been able to do that on my own. So I'm not trying to plug having a financial advisor, because I don't think some people need one yet. Right. And that's where going to. How does someone know, like, I'm at a place where I just need to get $1,000 in a savings account. And also need to get a job because I don't have a job, versus I think I'm at a place where I might need a financial advisor to help me figure out how to like, maybe they have their own business. I know people who have their own businesses, but they're fledgling businesses or just starting out. So they don't have a 401k and they don't know how to set that up. Maybe they have a CPA that they're working with, but that I think you need more than that. So where would you say, okay, this is a point where you probably need to get some outside. Can you even say that? Can you recommend, like, when someone should get a financial advisor, or when it might be something to consider at least?
I can say that, well, and there's so many different kinds of advisors out there. So there are advisors who will work with people who are just kind of starting off and starting their accounts and getting them up and going. And starting off with a simple IRA or a SEP IRA if you have your own business, just starting out. There are advisors who do work with clients like that on a very basic kind of beginner level. And then there are advisors like myself who specialize in working with people who have $500,000 or more saved, because so it kind of depends on where you are and just finding an advisor to fit where you are. Um, you had a lot of knowledge, but like you said, there are a lot of moving parts. And the more you learn, the more you realize how much there really is to learn. If you're in the earlier stages, accumulating stages of life, you may just need somebody to kind of point you in a direction, help you get the right kinds of accounts started. And that's good. And then you're just saving, and it becomes autopilot after a little bit. Or you may be in a place where you're like, gosh, in the next 10 years, I'm going to have quite a bit of stuff going on, and I've got a lot of assets here that I really need to make sure that they're plugged into the right spots, and I am making the right decisions about those kinds of things. That's a different kind of planning that's needed, a different level of planning that's needed. And that is definitely where I would recommend an advisor for sure,
Okay.
if that is helpful.
Yeah.
I think there are. There's another element of this. So I'm going to share the key to investing success with you. Are you ready? Like, there's
Yeah.
two
Let's
keys
do
to
it.
investing success. Okay, here they are. Time and discipline. Those two things. And when sometimes we think of investing, especially if we don't know. So if there's women out there that they don't really know about anything about investing, they think of like movies like Wall Street and these other things where like people are market timing and they're day trading and they're trying to buy and sell at just the right time, and they think that there's some secret magical investment out there that I need to learn about that's going to make me all this money. And frankly, that's just a bunch of hooey because the key to investing success is knowing where you are in life, what kind of risk you should be taking, and then making sure you're diversified in your investments and that you have enough risk, but not too much in your portfolio. Then time and sticking with the strategy. One thing I've learned about women is that when they have a plan and when they know why they're invested the way they're invested, they actually stick to strategy better than men do. They
Oh,
can become
interesting.
very disciplined with their emotions when they're like, nope, I know why we're doing what we're doing. They may not understand every investment inside their portfolio or every single mutual fund or ETF. They may not know how all of those exactly work, but they know their three buckets. They know that in that growth bucket, why they're invested. They know that's 5 year plus money. And so they know that what it's for. And they're like, no, we're not taking out of that. I'm not selling right now. Um,
Yeah.
I have an analogy that I like to use, and I've shared it with Diana before.
Yes, this is the best. Every time I look at, because I do have some retirement accounts, and at any given time, it's like, ooh, it's looking good. And then a month later, you go and you're like, oh my gosh, I lost thousands of dollars. What happened to my money? And I was talking to Samantha about that once, and she gave me this analogy, and I have never freaked out since.
Oh,
Oh, I love
cool.
that. It's so good. Well, so imagine, so we all know or we have an idea of knowing about buying a house and how the housing market can fluctuate over time. And so let's just imagine that you could buy a house today for $100,000. I mean, wouldn't it be great if you could? So let's say you did, and you've owned this house for 5 or 6 years, and one day you realize, you know what, this house is really kind of too small, and I would prefer to maybe move, and let's see what that would look like, and maybe I could get a bigger house. So you have an agent come over to your house, and they're walking through, and they come back and they say, this market isn't great. You could probably only get about $90,000 for this house. Now, logically, you wouldn't say to yourself, oh my gosh, I just lost $10,000. You would just say, darn, all right, I'll just hold on to the house. I'll just stay in this house and I'll pick a better time to move when the house is worth more and I can get more for it. And it's the exact same thing about the investments that we hold. So the problem is that we can get a daily valuation of what our investments are worth, and we don't get a daily valuation of what our home is worth. If we did, we would see the same kind of fluctuation in our home that we see in our investment accounts. But we don't get freaked out about what our home is worth because we don't care until we want to sell it.
Right.
And investments are the same way. So you're getting a valuation that day of what you could sell everything in the account for. In 14 years, have never had somebody come to me and say, I need to sell everything that's in my account. So the reason that we do planning and we make sure that we have enough liquid savings, cash in the bank, money we can get to at and instantly, and we make sure we have enough income in the middle bucket is so that it gives us the freedom and flexibility to not sell something in our growth bucket when it's down. That's the point, is to give it the time and the discipline to give ourselves the discipline that we need to leave it alone. And so sometimes some of my single women clients, if they're feeling a little nervous about what's happening in the markets, they'll call me and just say, just remind me that it's not time to sell the house. I mean, they'll use those exact words because if they're not needing anything from that, if they don't need that money today, then today's valuation of what it's worth, it is not that important anymore. And
Yeah.
so that's just a way to look at it to help yourself not freak out when if we do have some we are going to have some market volatility. We don't know what day, we don't know what month, we don't know when we're going to enter that. But when you do, if it's not time to sell the house, don't worry about what the house is worth that day. Make sure you then focus on your liquid funds and the savings because this is the ticket to ride out volatility, making sure you have enough cash on hand to get you through.
Yeah. My advisor said, because when I first hired him, it was right before everything started going down and it was down for a long time. So I put money in and then I just watched myself lose a bunch of money. And but he really did convince me at the beginning. He showed me, like the last 100 years and how it all looks. And so I was like, okay. And then the other thing he said is he said if you put money in just consistently on autopilot every month, think about it. You're buying and it's low, you're buying stuff when it's really cheap. So this is a good thing. So that
That's
made
exactly
me,
right. Yeah,
yeah.
I
And
was going to add that because people think, well, why shouldn't I just like sell and stay out during the downtimes and then come back in when it's good and then just go back and forth? And the reason is, well, first of all, you can't know, and by the time you know, it's too late to
yeah,
do either one. But secondly, good things are happening all along the way. And sometimes I'll say, you better hope that the markets aren't just up, up, up. Because
Yes.
that's not best for you. It's best because if you own a mutual fund or an ETF and it has a stock exposure in it, you're going, or even bond exposure, you're going to be getting dividends and interest that come into the account periodically, whether it be quarterly, annually, biannually, whatever it is, they come into the account and whatever it came from, whatever produced that dividend or interest, then when it comes in, if you're set up this way in your account, it'll go back out and then purchase fractional shares or more full shares of whatever it is that you're invested in. So all along the way, during times of market volatility, you get things on sale. And when you get things on sale, then when the market comes back up, you get a bigger boost on the way up because now you own more shares. You're getting to buy little cheap houses all along the way that
Yes.
raise in value later. So it's very important to stay in the market in
Yeah.
those time periods. So I'm glad you brought that up, Natalie.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't even I didn't used to even look at my accounts ever, but then I got the Monarch budgeting app and that shows me all of my accounts when I open it up. So then I started noticing, oh my gosh, but also started to, and it just goes up and down every day. It's up and down, up and down. And I don't even it's like you get used to it once you see it every day too. You're just like, yeah, that's the way it goes. And
Yeah,
I and
and you
I
have to know yourself. If it
yeah,
freaks you out, turn it off. Because and especially if you have an advisor and you're walking this road and you know your plan and you know where you're
yeah,
heading.
yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah, if I
because the
happen to hear in
emotion.
the news that the market went down, I'm like, I'm not checking my accounts this week. I just don't. Is
yeah,
why I'm not selling the house. I'm not taking any money out. And
right.
like, I just don't need to look.
Yeah, I love that analogy. I will never forget that. That is such a great analogy. Yeah, I'm not selling my house right now, so I don't doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter what it's worth today. It
Yeah,
matters what it's worth when I sell it.
That's right.
And I can change the date I sell it if I don't like what it's worth on the day I'm thinking of selling.
That's right.
so I'm just curious. Well, I know why, but explain for anyone who might not. Why is it good to consider not having to pay tax, or to consider not having to pay taxes later instead of now? So you mentioned that there's certain IRAs where you pay on your income, you pay the taxes now, and then you don't have to pay it later when you take it out. And then other ones, you don't have to pay the taxes now. It's like a deduction now, but then later on when you take the money out, you do have to pay taxes on it. What is Why is it better one way than the other? Or it's not necessarily better one way than the other, but what are the advantages of both of those?
Yeah. Why could it be optimal? The advantages can be my personal feeling about it is I would much rather pay the tax when I know what the tax is. The unknown 20 years from now, so many things can happen, but you're also then paying taxes on not just the seed, but the harvest.
Yes.
Um, and I would rather pay taxes on the seed and not the harvest. And so that's one way to think about it. Traditional thinking years ago, it used to be thought that, okay, in your working years, it's better to save the taxes because your income is higher. And when you're in retirement, your taxes will be lower, so pay the taxes then. But I will say that that's rarely happening these days. Most of the time, people's taxes really aren't going down dramatically. The income, it's not like they're going through life and they need a certain amount of income and then they get to retirement and all of a sudden they can live on half of what they needed before. So that's not happening. So if they're still in a close tax bracket, maybe a little bit less, the difference in taxes isn't that much in their retirement. And so they're not saving that much. And it ends up being much more beneficial to get tax-free growth over a long period of time. And then when they're able to have full access to the funds over 59 and a half, they're not paying taxes on that. They pay taxes on the seed, but not the harvest. The other benefit to that is it's much better for beneficiaries. So the people that you want to inherit your accounts, if it's never had taxes paid like a traditional IRA, it's just been tax deferred the whole time. The tax can has been kicked down the road. When your beneficiaries inherit that account, then they have to pay the taxes on that account at their tax rate. Whereas Roth, oh, and they also have to take it in a certain period of time. Like they have a time restriction that they have to deplete the account in. Whereas with Roth, the beautiful thing is government doesn't care how soon you deplete the account because they're not owed anything in it. So there's no time on that. And then when it is distributed, um, I'm sorry, there might be, forgive me, I think I misspoke. I think there is a time period, but there's no taxes paid on that. I think you still have to have it depleted in 10 years, but there's not like you have to take a certain amount out every single year, which helps with their tax situation. So again, I'm not a tax person, I'm not a tax advisor. So just want to say that, but there are a lot more tax advantages on the Roth side of things.
Yeah.
I learned this year too that you can, well, this might be getting complicated, but you can move money from a SEP IRA, which is a self-employment IRA, into your Roth so that you won't have to pay taxes on the harvest, but you do have to pay taxes when you move the money over. There's so many moving parts to this, is all I'm
Yeah,
saying, but
yeah.
definitely a lot to consider. The deeper it can be kind of fun. Those of you who think it's scary, we're talking about this on another podcast too. We so many things to talk about with money, but the more knowledge you have on this is why we're talking to Samantha. The more knowledge you have on this stuff, the less scary it is. I've got a sign behind me that says discover what is possible. In this saving money for your future, there is so much that's possible. So if you're not in the position where you need a financial advisor at this time, still keep learning. Talk to people that you know, talk to a tax advisor, talk to an accountant, get some free consultations, listen to podcasts. And this can be fun to learn about. It can be very empowering. So,
I love that.
yeah.
As a single parent, I started doing my own taxes through, one of the online programs that you can
Mhm.
do. And what was so helpful about that is it gave me some context. Like I'm entering this information here, and then I'm looking at it on the form and it's showing up here. And it kind of helps you start to understand also how taxes work and, how savings especially retirement, IRA, 401k savings can affect the taxes and just gives you kind of a beginner way of starting to understand how those things work.
The other thing I do online too, I've done my own taxes so that I could learn those things and finally figured out this last year how the SEP IRA deduction works. Like I didn't fully understand it. And self-employment tax I had to figure out. But anyway, another thing I do online all the time, which is fun when we talk about these retirement accounts, like if you have a Roth IRA, which was the very first one I got to start my retirement, so I could not pay taxes on that money beyond, once I put it in, no taxes. But you could just go to simple calculators online. Just look up Roth IRA calculator. And then you can put in, if I keep contributing $7,000 a year in 20 years, what will this be worth? And then I'm like, I'll have this many $100,000 in there that I can take out and never pay taxes on. That's crazy. And that, again, it's empowering and it starts making this feel fun. You can almost think of it like a little game. If I put some quarters in the machine, if I put some quarters in the Roth, what am I going to get in the end? It's really fun.
I love that. I also want to say something real quickly about women who might be in the stage of baby steps and or even women who, like we talked about, may need to learn to live on less than what they've had in the past. Um, we build financial muscles over time. And one of the things I've seen really powerfully in my practice over the last 13 years is that women who have taken the time to build their financial muscles, when they get to seasons of life, like maybe they want to have a career change and have the freedom and flexibility to be able to not have to earn as much, or maybe they want to enter a retirement season or any kinds of things like that, that if they have practiced and practiced living on a budget. They've worked out their financial muscles. They are aware of where they're spending their money. Their money is not controlling them because they're directing their money. They're saying, no, I want you to go over here. And no, you don't get to be the boss of me. I'm going to prepare by doing this, or I'm going to save to be able to have the freedom to do this. And when they approach it with that mindset and develop those muscles over time, those are the women that I see really launch successfully into their own lives because they are taking the time to do the exercises every day that give them that ability, that strength, that stability over time. If they come out and they don't take the time to do that and they don't build those muscles, they're always looking to somebody else or something else to rescue them, to provide for them. And even myself, I remember having an awakening one day. This is before I had my financial advising career. I was working three part-time jobs, trying to make ends meet, and I'm trying to find a full-time job that worked around my kids' schedule. And it was so stressful. And I just remember thinking, if I could just find the right person and marry them. I'm horrified to that I had that thought, but I don't think it's unusual for
Mhm.
women to have that thought. If I just had a partner, I'd be okay. And one day I'm walking through my living room and I just thought, nobody is going to rescue you. You can figure this out. And that relates to so much more than just being able to take care of ourselves financially. It affects the way we carry ourselves. It affects the way we speak to people. It affects the way we handle our children and how we inspire them in these areas. And so if I had not stopped and just said, you know what, Samantha, you got to figure this out. You're going to be responsible for yourself. Stop looking for some magical answer or some magical person to come along and rescue you and start on your path. And it was about 6 months from then that I had an opportunity to interview to start with a financial company that I was like, what in the world? Why, how could I even do that? But because I loved people, I cared about people, and I could learn something new, they took a chance on me. And here I am now with my own practice. Um, a very successful practice. I never could have imagined being in this place, but it took one step at a time, having nothing, working on a little bit what I could do, and choosing to leave the past behind, focus on the future, equipping myself, and taking responsibility for my own financial future.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting that women, not all women, but a lot of women tend, I think we've been programmed by our culture to think that way. Because can you imagine, as you were talking, I was like trying to think of a guy doing that, of a guy sitting in his house going, oh my gosh, I need to find a partner so that I can figure out my finances and, be able to make it through life. I don't think
There's
most
a
guys
few.
I don't think I don't think most guys are programmed to think like I can't figure this out on my own. I'm going to need to have a woman by my side to help me figure this out. I don't think most guys are programmed to think that way.
Especially not on the financial side, maybe
Yeah,
on the managing kids and all of that, but not on the
sure.
financial side.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, yeah, maybe on the cooking side, but yeah. But I mean, it's just something fascinating to think about. Yeah, ladies that are listening to this, you that song, I can do anything, you can do better. That's going through my head.
I could do anything better than you.
No, you can't.
Yes, I can.
That you are perfectly capable, just as capable of figuring out your finances as anybody who has an extra appendage to their bottom area. So, yeah, I mean, because that's really the main difference, right? And it just shouldn't make that big of a difference. I think Diana and I have not recorded episode 1 yet. This is episode 2, but we are going to talk about mindset. I wish I could say, well, in episode 1 we talked about, but Diana,
I
we'll have
wonder
to
what we
talk about,
talked about.
yeah, exactly. But we're going to talk about money mindset and stuff, and this might be something that we need to, touch on a little bit, the whole idea of gender. So all right, so we're gonna wrap this up here, but Samantha, there could be people out there listening that are thinking, well, gosh, I think I should get a financial advisor. I think I should hire somebody. And I wish I could interview Samantha. Can you work, do you work with people outside of your state, or are there certain licensing requirements, or are you
I'm
someone, can people work with you, I guess?
Yes, they can. I can actually work with anyone in the United States, and I do have a lot of long distance clients. We meet by Zoom. It works out great. I would, yeah, I'd be happy to talk with them. I do have a
Okay.
minimum of 500,000 or more in investable assets, and that's just because of the level of planning that I do. And so to be worth it for the client, I want it to be worth it for the client, that relationship would be fulfilling for them. And so absolutely happy to talk with you, happy to find out if that's a good fit. And
Okay.
if not, I might be able to point you in a direction that
Oh,
would be better.
yes. Yes. So I will put your contact information or your website in the show notes. Can you maybe just to clarify for anyone who might not know, what would $500,000 of assets look like? Like what do you mean by assets? Can you
That's a
name all the different
great
types of?
question. Again, me using one of the terminologies, right? So I would just say account values. So 401ks, IRAs, maybe just a regular investment account that isn't a retirement, quote unquote, kind of account. It wouldn't be the value of a house or money that wasn't accessible. It would be accounts that are currently invested for the long term and are able to maybe move or go someplace else, that kind of account. So
Okay. Okay. And just also, if you're listening and you're wondering about the house thing, we are going to be talking to a mortgage professional who is going to talk a lot about that whole situation, renting, buying, selling, all of that, things to consider there down the road. I can't remember which episode it's going to be, but it's a future episode. So we are really, in this series, we are really going to cover, I hope, everything that you could possibly think of when it comes to
I
money.
love
So,
this.
yeah.
I love it.
Well, Samantha and Diana, thank you so much for joining us here. And it was great to talk with you. You gave us a lot of things to think about and a lot of information. Where could, if you could give someone a recommend, like, is there a book that you recommend, or something, just a single resource where people could go to start learning more and go deeper in, like, even your website? Do you have articles on your website that kind of break things down for people, or that can help them further educate themselves on?
I do have some articles on my website at insightwealthkc.com, and there's an insights, it's like a blog. So there's a few articles there. As silly as this sounds, Investing for Dummies, you can buy that book, and it gives a lot of just basic definitions. I think starting with definitions is a great way to start.
Yeah.
So other than Dave Ramsey's material, then I would say just Investing for Dummies, and then looking for some podcasts that you say. If you like podcasts, there's so many out there that could be super helpful.
Yeah, I'll just say right now, the Money with Katie show is one of my favorites. So if so Google that if you're listening. I'll put a link to that in the show notes as well. Um she's she's this young girl, and she's like smart as a whip, and she's so interesting to listen to. I love listening to her, even if she's talking about a topic that I don't care about, because I just love listening to her talk. She's just so fascinating. Anyway, yeah, all right. Well, that's it. Thank you so much again. And until next time, fly higher.